Hi, good morning. My name is Mrs. Robson. I'm in room N3. So if you don't have me as in the class, then you can always come and see me and just stop by and say hi. This is day 3, writing equations of lines. So we're definitely doing a crash course of Algebra 1 right now. So day 3, writing equations of lines. So let's go back to writing some slope-intercept, some vocabulary. So slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. And we know we want to look at the constants m and b. And m is our slope, so how much is the rate of change, so rise over run. And then our b is our y-intercept, which I like to call our starting point. Where does it cross the y-axis? So you can kind of make a note. So if you are filling out the notes right now, you want to make sure to definitely add this to your vocabulary as a reminder. All right, so let's state the slope and the y-intercept for each of the following equations. Again, just a brief recap. So if there's nothing in front of the x, the coefficient is 1. So therefore m equals 1. And then the constant of -1 would be b. So b would equal -1. All right, for number 2, let's look at our m and then our b. So what is attached to this x? What is that coefficient? Well, that would be -1/2. So this equation could actually be rewritten y equals -1/2 x. Okay, and if there is no constant attached, therefore b is 0. So this would actually start at the origin. Okay, let's look at number 3. So y equals 5. So I see no x in there. So m would equal 0, and then my b would equal 5. So in this case, y equals 5. We were graphing it. We'd go up to the 5 of the y-intercept and draw a line straight across. So in my class, we'd call this 0 fun, which is our slope. 0 fun. All right, the next one, x equals -3. So it's not even y, it's x. So we don't have an m or a b, so b would be 0. And actually my x-intercept would be -3. So let's just graph this and see what we've got here. So we'd go to -3 on our graph, and I would draw a vertical line. So what would my m be? My m would actually be undefined. So you can make that into a 0 with a cross through it, or you could actually write undefined for the m. Okay, so really make a big note about the difference between y equaling a constant and x equaling a constant. All right. Okay, so next we are going to be rewriting the equation. So let's remind ourselves how we rewrite. So y equals mx plus b is what we're aiming for. Again, isolating that variable of y, getting everything to the other side so we can actually graph it or we can solve it. So again, getting the y by itself, isolating the y. So let's first subtract 3x. We're going to subtract all of 3x to the other side and have 2y equals -3x plus 15. I like to put my x in front so then it can model the slope-intercept form. We like to kind of have the x and then the constant. Then again, we're isolating the y, so doing the inverse operation and dividing 2 to everything. So if y equals -3 halves x plus 15 halves. Okay, so, and then let's remind ourselves, what does that mean? So 15 halves would be our b, so we would go on the y-axis and graph 7.5, and then from there we would graph our slope of going up, rising 3 and running 2. Because it's a negative, we'd run to the left. Okay, now let's try number 6. So I actually want you to try 6 on your own. Think about, how am I getting this y by itself? First, let's move the -7x to the other side, and then remember it is a -14. So try that one, pause it, try it on your own. So if you got the right answer, you should have gotten y equals -1/2 x minus 2. Fantastic. All right, now let's move on. All right, now let's move on to graphing. So like I said, in order to graph, we want to put this in slope-intercept form so we can graph. So we want to get that y by itself again before we start graphing. So I'm going to subtract 3x to both sides. I like to put it in front, so I have -2y equals -3x plus 4. And having my x and then my b. Well, I'm not completely done yet until I divide that -2 to everything. So therefore I have y equals 3/2 x minus 2. Okay, so we have that, and now we're going to graph. So let's think about this. M is 3/2. B is -2. And I said before that the B is our starting point, our y-intercept. So let's go to our y-axis, go down to -2. That's our starting point. And then I'm going to use our slope to go up 3, 1, 2, 3, and over 2. Now I'm going to go up and right because it's a positive slope. If it was a negative, I would go left. So up and right, and there would be our graph. You can keep on going and go up 3, 1, 2, 3, and over 2. And then it could get a little bit cleaner in there. There we go. And then we have our line. So now I want you to go back in your notes. Here's a good trick and see x equals 5. Okay, well, we have x by itself. What is our slope? And what is our b? Do we have either of those? I'd like you to graph it and check back. Okay, awesome. So you should have had m is undefined, b is 0, and the x-intercept is 5. So it should be a vertical line at the 5 going straight up and down. So that one you should have had checked. Let's, for fun, what if it was y equals -2? Can you graph that for me? So in green, I made the y equals -2. So you do have a y-intercept, but your slope is 0, which would make a horizontal line. So knowing the difference between those two. All right, so we have rewritten equations, we have taken an equation and graphed it, and now we have the lines and we want to go backwards and make the equations. Again, we want to focus back on y equals mx plus b. So let's first start with this a1. So it's this blue line right here. Okay, and let's think about where does this start? Okay, I see it starting at the 2. So I know that that is my b. And from there, I want to find the next point. So let me find the next point. Again, it crosses at the, you want it right on the next point. And I got up 3, so rise of 3 and run of 1. So m would be 3. So how would I write that equation? Y equals 3x plus 2. Okay, now let's look at the b. Okay, so the b line, okay, where does it start? Let's find the next point and rise and run. Okay, so I want you to try that one. Figure out what the m and the b is, and write the equation. So if you notice for this one, it was a negative slope. I rose up and ran left. So I actually had 1, 2, 3, 4, and then over 2, which I reduced to negative. So -4 over 2, which reduces to -2. Could also have used this point also. So any points on the lines you can have, and then you can reduce the slope. But again, what is that starting point? Okay, and we've been talking about these a lot lately. This is a horizontal line for C, so we're going to have y equals. And then for number 12, that is a vertical line. So not a slope or a y-intercept. So that's going to be x equals. So y equals, it would be 3 straight across. And then the x equals, you should have gotten x equals -5. All right, we're almost there, guys. So we rewrote into slope-intercept form. We identified the slope and the y-intercept. We graphed, taking a graph and graphing a line. We took a line and wrote the equation. The last thing we're going to do is talk about the other equation. So point-slope form. So point-slope form is great. It's literally in the title. You have the slope and you have a point on the graph. Any point on the graph will do. We're going to take that point and make an equation. So I have my y minus y1. That just means the point in the, just using that point, and then m in front times x minus x1. Active board doesn't like that color. All right, let's change it. So y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. So what information are you plugging in? You're plugging in y1, m, and x1. Make sure when you use this equation, this is a subtraction sign in front. Okay? And then slope formula, the slope formula, we have y1 minus y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So if you need to find the slope, you have 2 points, x1, y1, x2, y2. Again, that's also subtraction. And then make sure that you have, that is a subtraction sign in between. And make sure you have y over x. Remember that the change in y over the change in x. Okay, so I have my 2's in a row, and I have my 1's in a row. Okay, if you need to find the slope of something. So let's work on number 13. Use point slope form to write an equation for each problem, then change it to slope intercept. So this is a pretty meaty problem. We have a few things to do. All right, so here's the point we're going to use, x1, y1, and we have our slope, which is m. I'm going to plug it into the point slope form. So I have y minus 2 equals negative 4 times x minus 4. X minus 4. There we go. And that's how I write it in point slope form. Okay, so let's think about, move this a little bit so we have more room. Fantastic. So now how am I going to get it into slope intercept form? Well, I'm going to distribute y, and I'm going to get this y by itself. Isolate the y. So I have negative 4x plus 16. Add 2 to both sides. And I have y equals negative 4x plus 18. So both of these equations are the same line, just how does it look differently? Okay, so now let's look at number 14. Contains 4, 1, and the slope is undefined. So let's think about an undefined slope. So if I graph this point, so over 4 and up 1, I graph that point and I want an undefined slope, it's going to be going up and down. Okay, so that means that my equation is actually x equals 4. Okay, x equals 4. How would I write that in point slope form? Well, I have a point, okay, but I don't have a slope. It's undefined. Okay, so that's why we'd have x equals 4 for that one. Okay, what if it was 4, 1, and my slope was 0? How would I write that? Okay, well, let's regraph it. The point 4 over 4 and up 1, and I graphed it across. Okay, so how would I write that? Well, it'd be y minus 1 equals 0 times x minus 4. So this side would go away. I'd have y there we go. I would have y minus 1 equals 0, bring the 1 to the other side, and y would equal 1. All right, so knowing the difference between undefined and slope, pretty important. All right, the last example, intercept. So x-intercept means that I have an x and my y is 0. Then the y-intercept, I don't have my x and I have my y. So now I'm going to use that slope formula. Okay, I like to do the double arrows, so I like my y on top, the change of y on top, and then the change of x on the bottom. So 3 over negative 2 is my slope, m equals. Okay, all right, then I have my point slope form, so I can use either point I can use for point slope form. I'm going to use 2, 0. So y minus 0 equals negative 3 halves x minus 2. Now let's say, for instance, I had, instead of the x-intercept of 2, what if I had an x-intercept of -2? Okay, how would that look different? Well, I'd have y minus 0 equals -3/2 times x minus a -2. So how would that change? Well, the two negatives would become positive. So that's what the point slope and how that would be a difference. So that negative would go away. So it is the opposite from the point slope form because of those subtraction signs. All right. So I hope you enjoyed this refresher of lines, how to write them and how to graph them, and have a great day.